Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we discover our hero within with a special guest. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey, guys, it's Prague.
Needing a quarantine haircut, this is DeLorean Wolfgang.
And I'm Tony Kim with Here Within.
Nice.
Awesome.
Welcome, Tony.
Welcome, Tony.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I thought I would come to you guys live from Comic-Con since it's canceled this year. It's pretty empty right now, I have to say. It's kind of
That's
sad.
not good for our audio listeners who can't see that you've got a Comic-Con background.
No, by the way, you can watch us on YouTube now. So those of you who are listening at home can now watch the second time over on YouTube. Secondary Heroes.
Nice.
I like how the Comic-Con jacket is sort of phasing in and out of the time-space continuum. You're like melting into the Comic-Con.
Obviously, people who are listening can't see this, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, what I am wearing is a Heroes Within 50th anniversary San Diego Comic-Con jacket. It's like a zip-up hoodie. It's fantastic. And by the way, Tony, I have gotten more compliments on this jacket than I probably have on any other piece of clothing I've ever owned.
All right.
So just a shout out to you. Yeah, and it's quality. I mean, the people come up to me like, wow, that was a really quality jacket.
Cool.
So
yeah, we it was a real honor to be able to partner with Comic-Con to produce, especially in such a commemorative year. And we expected it to be popular, but wow, we just didn't. We were overwhelmed with the demand for it, pre and during and even after. So I was just mentioning how many months later is it? And I just got a request today of someone asking for a new one of the jackets, and so
yeah,
it was a crazy experience.
Yeah, they probably saw me walking around and they said, hey, that's pretty neat.
Right.
Call up that Tony guy. So how did that collaboration come to be with Comic-Con? Did they come to you or did you pitch it to them?
I'm good friends with a lot of them, and they've sort of tracked our progress over the years. And as I tell many people, the idea of Here Within was really birthed at Comic-Con. We launched it a year later at Comic-Con. It's grown at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And so it only sort of made sense that, we were to be a part of the 50th anniversary celebration. So the showrunners they're awesome, and they really want to do what they can to create really to make that 50th anniversary as memorable as possible.
Nice.
And so we were grateful to be able to partner with them on that. So.
Very cool. Now, I know that we just kind of jumped straight into it with the whole sweater that Frog's wearing, but would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of give us a background of who you are and what your company's all about?
Yeah, let's rewind the tape.
Sure. So I was born.
Oh,
that's not right.
Already off to a good start.
That's right. I was born in Dallas, Texas. My parents immigrated here before I was from Korea a year before I was born. So I actually grew up in Texas, and that's where kind of home is for me.
Very nice.
I'd always been a big nerd fan and a geek, and for me, my parents were like the awesome but stereotypical Asian parents, where they're like working day and night and day, and kind of left me entertain myself. And so I kind of found my sort of home and found my comfort in the arms of comic books. That was sort of my thing, that I really sort of escaped into that. It was hard for me because I kind of grew up in a monoculture community. And so I've always felt like I was a misfit or marginalized. I didn't belong. And so, that's what the core of comics are all about, like the misfit, people who are the outcasts.
Yeah.
And, like Superman, his story, this sort of strange visitor from another land and coming and trying to find his place here in this planet, knowing that he has a voice to do something that's kind of greater than he could ever possibly imagine. Like his story is really the ultimate immigrant story, and so as a young kid, like those stories really just resonated with me and really informed much of who I would become as an adult. And so, really through my teen years, I started collecting comics and started really loving, of course, sci-fi movies. And I remember on the back of comic books, I would see this sort of this ad for this mythical place called San Diego Comic-Con. They would promote it back then. They'd put ads in the comics,
Yes.
and I would just be staring at I would look at those ads for just like seemingly hours and just be like, what is that place? Like, what is it and what's happening there?
It's
And
Mecca.
never in my wildest dreams would I ever think that I would ever be able to go. You just don't just, especially when you're back decades ago, Texas and California feels like two planets apart. So fast forward, just through a sort of crazy set of circumstances, I moved from that region to California. I kind of jumped in the marketing and creative realm, and I attended my first Comic-Con back in 2006, and it's kind of crazy because I woke up one morning and called my buddy up and said, hey, I've always wanted to go to that Comic-Con thing. It's a Saturday. Always want to go to this Comic-Con thing. Let's drive down and go check it out. So I got in the car, drove down on a Saturday, bought tickets at the door, and saw the host show. And this was back then where you could just
Tickets to the door,
yeah, completely different experience.
Yeah.
So and so that moment on that year was seminal for me. Like, it was really like that sort of life altering sort of moment that really sent me on this trajectory of how not only how awesome, but how important pop culture would become, and so fast forward again in the future, as I was sort of contemplating a new future, a new opportunity, it just sort of made sense that if we were going to launch a new company, that we would do it sort of in the context and in the community of Comic-Con itself. And so I can kind of jump into the what Hero Within is and what it's all about, but in a nutshell, it's as I see you in the jacket and in the background, Comic-Con is so much more to me than just a place to nerd out, but it really is like, it's a community that I love dear, and it's a place where the future of culture is shaped, and honestly, it has the best fans in the world. Like, just as we've all sort of seen and interacted and mingled and became friends with other Comic-Con attendees, like, it really is truly the best place in the world to be. And so that's kind of in a nutshell kind of how I got here, and how Comic-Con really has affected me.
Oh yeah, I think it's affected all of us in a big way. I mean, the three of us really kind of met in that culture, in the Comic-Con culture. That's how we started this podcast. Kind of the same idea. But one thing you did note in your childhood, was it hard for you to actually get comic books? Were your parents okay with that with you, or did you kind of sneak that in?
No, it was they were fine with it, because again, they kind of were like they were working and busy. And
they weren't paying attention much. Okay.
Yeah. But it was it was hard because we didn't have access to it, and at an early age, fortunately, a buddy of mine, we would get on our bikes and we would ride what seemingly felt like 500 miles. It was probably about a mile and a half.
Right.
But we'd ride we would save up our money all week long, and then on Comic Book Wednesdays we would go in, and we had each of us had $10 we could spend. And back then comics were 60, 75 cents, $1, like that. Yeah. And so that was the highlight of our week. And so but my first comic books were when I was going with my mother to the grocery store, and then back then they always had the spindle racks.
Spinner racks, yeah.
At the grocery store,
Yep. And 7-Elevens too, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I got a Captain America and a Spider-Man and sort of those early origin comics, and that kind of was the first comic books that I ever got.
Yeah, I feel like they were more accessible back then than they are nowadays. Back then, I walked into 7-Eleven every week. I would get a new, cheap 10-cent or 25-cent comic book and bring it home, and I loved it. It didn't matter what it was either.
Now you go to the comic book store. You're at a different age range.
Yeah,
now you go to the comic book store now, and if it's got a variant of any kind, the comic book price jumps up to $10.
Yeah. It's 25 sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And it's really scary to think about that. Man, there might not be any comics.
There might not be.
Left after this. We may never see comics in a concentrated place. As far as retail is concerned, they'll be at cons, but we may not see that maybe ever again. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that this has really affected a lot of small businesses, and that's what comic book stores are. You know, your LCS is a small business. And they were already pretty much pinching pennies, I think, even before this happened. So,
well, and that was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you in was, I mean, with something like this and having Comic-Con being canceled and having WonderCon canceled, Emerald City canceled,
San Diego canceled con.
I mean, how is this affecting, you know, a small business like yourself?
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible. I mean, it really is. We are just experiencing a nightmare unfold in slow motion, and it's obviously not just myself, but it's so many businesses, big and small, that are experiencing it. And I think what's so tough about it is that there's just no precedence for it. Like, you know, there's no, the closest thing we kind of have is we talk about the recession, and we also talk about 9/11, those sort of events, but it's nothing like this.
No.
Where we can't even go to a movie theater. We can't go to a comic book shop. And who knows, those two things may end up going away, like we mentioned. And so, this really is a very difficult time for us, for Hero Within, particularly. Our trouble started at the very beginning of this year because we do a chunk of our manufacturing overseas in China. And then in December, when the virus started up there, you know, I'm communicating with our people there, and they're just like, "Oh, this is something that's happening. Like, this is becoming a deal." And then the workforce went on when they had Chinese New Year, so their workforce through the month of January they kind of return back to their homes for the whole month and take a break. And so at that time, it was really blowing up in China. And so at that time, I thought, "Oh, this is going to be big for us." And so when we were supposed to get right back into manufacturing at the beginning of February, and they contacted us February 1 and said, "We're not allowed to come back for at least a month or 6 weeks or so." So our whole manufacturing, our production pipeline was kind of crippled from the very beginning, at the beginning of the year. So I saw and felt the sort of tsunami, you know, a month earlier, before everything else sort of hit. And they just now kind of got back into going, and everything is very slow and very delayed, and they're still dealing with troubles, but they're making progress. But yeah, it's from that point on to now, not really having for Here Within, like probably 50-60% of our sales come from those live event experiences, Comic-Con, trade shows, those sorts of things. And more than just the actual selling of merchandise, but it's meeting and making new fans, friends. It's a lot of collaboration opportunities, a lot of partnerships. All of my licenses have come from comic conventions. So it's just all that sort of stuff that you end up losing out on. And so now we're in this place where we're trying to sell online, but then, you know, most people, understandably, like, their priority is not fashion, luxury wear items. You know, it's not toilet paper, and it's rent, and it's food, and all those sorts of things. And so it really puts us, when you look at there's been a lot of studies done already about the priority, or the industries that have been hurting the most. And of course, at the bottom of that is the hotel and travel industry. But then right above that is apparel. And then above that is restaurant industry, and so on. And so we're in a rock and hard place. You know, it's I don't think anyone could have predicted it, but you know, I know that everyone is in a tough spot. So and some people have it worse than we do. So I'm not gonna you know, complain too much, but it's the most dire it's ever been. And but at the same time, the story's not yet written, and there's a lot of things that could happen. And fortunately, up to this point, our fan base has been really great, very supportive. Media sites like yourself and others have been awesome too. And so, again, referring back to our Comic-Con community, I think what makes it so great is that we're so connected, so willing to support each other, so willing to promote and to sort of help each other out where we can. And so you know, while the end result might not be what I imagine or how anyone else imagines, I'm convinced that through our connectedness and us helping each other, we'll make it through.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great, actually. And it was through connections that I actually got to know Hero Within. I had heard Hero Within and your name over and over back when Nerd Foo was at its,
Oh yeah.
and your name always came up. And I remember I had to seek your booth out. And I felt lucky. I was like, okay, cool. I actually got to meet you. I ended up buying a jacket for my wife, Captain Marvel jacket, which
Cool.
she absolutely loves. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's a lot of it is word of mouth for a lot of these Comic-Con vendors.
Yeah.
Because I heard your name in a podcast, I went and seeked you out. I mean, who knows if I would have found out. I mean, I could have found out any other way, but yeah, it's a lot of it's word of mouth. And
My heart really goes out to the artists in Artist Alley. You know, a lot of them really rely, like 90+% of their business comes from these shows.
Yeah.
From these live experiences. They don't necessarily have like a real robust like online store entity, and so they'd rely on these shows. And so yes, my heart really breaks for those that are really the artists that are, you know, they have nowhere to sell. So
for sure. Yeah. We started a live stream every Thursday night at 7:30 on Mixer, YouTube, all those, where what we do is we actually do our own Artist Alley.
Cool.
We call it the Secondary Artist Alley, and we invite an artist on every week where they can sit down and just draw whatever they want, or they can take requests and stuff like that. It's just a way for us to try and get artists still out there. Because like you said, 90% of their business comes from Comic-Cons. And if they lose out on that, you know, we're willing to help by putting live streams out there for them. I mean, if they're not doing it themselves, hopefully we're helping too. So,
and hopefully we can get a new audience for them.
For sure. Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Absolutely.
Sure.
How do you think cons will change as a result of what's happened?
Ooh.
Yeah, we did talk about this on some episodes. It's, you know, I mean, we kind of went full force, like, what if there's no cons at all? Like the whole idea of a virtual con, or maybe some things are more virtual in that realm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to have to be a more virtual aspect to it, like giving people the option to either buy a physical ticket or a virtual ticket. So that way there's less people going, but more people can still,
But do you think we'll get back to that place where there's, you know, like Hall H and there's 7,000 people packed into a room and all that sort of stuff? Or do you think it's going to take, like some people, we all hope that like this time next year, it's going to be all back to normal. But do you think that even if there's a vaccine and all that, do you think that the age of that mega show, do you think that's kind of,
I think it's over. I think that's done for, which is unfortunate because one of my favorite experiences was being in Hall H for Star Wars The Force Awakens panel.
Yeah.
Just until you cannot compare that to anything else, you know, other than maybe like Woodstock. So
but I don't
know.
It's heartbreaking to think that we may not go back to the 500,000 people taking over San Diego. I mean, the experience of, I mean, cosplayers, I can't, right now, I barely want to go into my neighborhood and stand next to anybody. So, I mean, do I really want to go to a place with 500,000 people crammed in one place, even if there is a vaccine?
Yeah. Well, think about if you go to any show, one thing that's common is how all the celebrities and the talent that go there to do signings and to do photo ops and to meet fans. And like, if I was a celebrity, would I want to expose myself to that sort of close contact?
Hundreds of people that are trying to hug you, shake your hand. I mean, try to touch you in any which way.
Yeah.
I mean, celebrities. Yeah, absolutely.
They don't want to get sick. They'll lose that big paycheck. No way. That's their career.
It'll be like a big zoo, you know, where there's like glass and you just
oh my god,
you just see them inside.
No banging on the glass, sir.
Please do not feed the celebrities.
Yes, please. Do not stick your fingers in the cage.
Chris Pine bites.
Chris Pine bites. Yeah.
But yeah, but you know, I was at C2E2 in February. It was our last show, and everything
that was still on now. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the last show that was going on, and we were all very aware of what was happening in Seattle. That's what everyone was talking about. Attendance was lower. People were not. No one shaking hands. All fist bumps.
Remember that? Yes.
Just a few face masks, but for the most part, people were just like, I don't know how. Like, let's just fist bump. I don't know how concerned we should be.
Right.
And everyone was talking about if Seattle, if Emerald City was going to happen, because it was like 10 days later. But it was very surreal, because all those people, and you're at a show and like no one is hugging, no one's touching each
So
other.
weird, right?
Yeah.
It was, again, at the most, it was just fist bumps. But I'm like, wow, mate, will that be what it'll be like in the future? Like, is the age of like handshakes, is it gone? I mean, is a bro hug, is it gone? It's like,
Right? I don't know.
Oh my God.
Are we all
Yeah.
gonna wear gloves forever? Is that gonna be a
Yeah.
new
No,
fashion
I mean,
statement?
once I think there's a vaccine, people are gonna go, because the idea is, I like the Disneyland comparison. People absolutely love Disney, and it's going to be open, and people are pining to go to Disneyland. And so there's going to be fear, I think, throughout 2021. But I think by 2022, if you don't get a vaccine, you'll kind of be shunned in society.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
it just seems like people forget. They move on from things as a society. Horrible things happen, and we always seem to move on and
Yeah.
forget how horrible that was.
That's kind of optimistic in a weird way. I guess I like it. We tend to forget the horrible things, and
But for one thing that we're sort of wrestling through for Here Within is for us at our value that we have at a show is the in booth experience. And so we don't have like a table and you reach across and you give us money, we hand you something. Like, our booth is fully open. You come in, there's high touch and interaction with our staff, and then you're trying on clothes. And the thought of, like people might not want to be in a place where they're trying on clothes that other people have tried on, and
I was actually going to ask
yeah.
if that was something that you were worried about.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, we
last
don't know
time I
how-
went to your booth, I put on a Peter Quill jacket,
Yeah.
and man, did I look good in that thing. And the fact that I wouldn't be able to try that, I mean, who knew that maroon would look good on me if I'm looking at it on the shelves?
That's
I
true.
have to put that on to know, damn, this looks good.
But that's all the things that we're talking through whenever we get back, hopefully back to the show, is like, will we be able to return back to quote unquote normal, or is it a different way we have to do it? I mean,
yeah, are they gonna have to like spray down stuff all the
Yeah.
time, like they do with airlines right now? Like fog everything with.
It's just because we have April eyes
Wow.
right now. Everything's unknown right now. A year out, we're going to know every single aspect of transmission and how the virus works. And right now, we're scared because we have no idea.
Yeah,
so
scared
that's
of
why
the
it's so
unknown,
tough to
right?
speculate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's switch gears just a little bit here.
Yeah.
Something more lighthearted. Let's go a little bit lighthearted. Tony, how about you tell us like maybe one or two of like your favorite moments from Comic-Con that really meant a lot to you?
Oh man.
Both either for yourself personally or for Here Within.
Oh gosh. Well, one memory that is a little bit unusual, not a typical experience, is that I've done some. I get an opportunity to do some to work with some of the talent that comes into the shows, Comic-Con, sometimes Comic-Con, but for different comic conventions. And I'll do some like moderating panels, and I'll do some like interviews and that sort of stuff. And so, but a few years back, I was assigned to escort, welcome in and escort for the entire day Conan O'Brien.
Oh,
And
fun.
so it was his first Comic-Con, which led into now he's big thing.
He's everywhere.
Every year he does his big show there.
Right.
And so his first year there of just basically like trying to figure out what is a Comic-Con, I was basically his handler for the day, and just sort of like took him from his booth to the his panel, to the floor, to out and about. And I don't say that to brag or anything. The reason why I bring it up is that I've been fortunate that I've had a chance to work with a lot of different talent over the years, and many of them are fine. Some of them are real jerks, and but just people who are sort of oblivious of the people around them that help them do their jobs. But Conan was the kindest person I've ever had to work with. Like, so
good to know.
so yeah, like he is like a celebrity among celebrities. Whenever he walks into, we're going through the back halls and going to the green rooms, and whenever he enters a place, all the celebrities turn and gawk. Like they all line up and they want to talk to him. And
He's also 10 feet tall, so
yeah.
be part of
Yeah.
it.
But when he is going through, I spent a day with him, and he's going through those crowds and the back rooms and the green rooms, like the amount of eyeballs focused on him at all times was nothing but exhausting. Like I could not imagine that level of attention, like all the time.
Wow.
But he handled it just like so graceful, so much like a pro. And, even at the collaborating, asking people's opinions, talking to people like they're regular humans. And I remember at the end of the day, like he stopped before he left, he went through and just thanked every person individually, hugged them, shook their hands that helped them in any way, myself, others, just like very attentive. And, that spoke to me about how important it is to be grateful and to be thankful and to have a personal connection with anyone, big or small, or not small is the right word, but big or behind the scenes.
So that's okay. Yeah.
Behind the scenes. How about that?
There you go. Yeah.
But just so impressed by that, and that has always stuck with me. I've been fortunate to like meet a lot of different people, but like that really stuck out to me. Of like, wow, like it doesn't matter who you become, like be a kind person.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever I'm at Comic-Con, like you run into celebrity, you can't help but physically run into a celebrity, and like it'll make a difference if they were nice to you or not. Yeah. It goes a long way. You'll remember that. Yeah. Like I remember when so-and-so ran into me and didn't say anything. Just kept going. Seth Green, I'm looking at you.
Probably the. Sorry. You mentioned a memory for Here Within. Last year, I think one of the things that really was years ago when Here Within was first launching, we were at a WonderCon at a booth that was like a booth that we kind of envisioned, we'd like to maybe have a booth like that someday. This is before the company had really started. And so we were just kind of dreaming like, oh, wow, like it'd be cool to have a booth at Comic-Con someday and to be able to sell something. And I remember just dreaming like it would be like such an impossible dream if I can make something that people would want to like, I don't know, like maybe wait in line for, or, like stay out all night to try to get, like it just seemed like it was impossible, And so fast forward to last year, and, there was, and sadly, I'm not happy about it, but it was just so crazy how many people were like, not just staying in line, but like sleeping out overnight to get the jacket that you're wearing, and it was crazy. And then as soon as the floors opened, it was just mad rush, and just at our booth, boom, instantly there was just lines and lines of people. They had to the staff had to like queue up a line in a whole separate part of this convention center to get them over to our booth. It was crazy. But the coolest memory that we had was that we were all, the end of a long day, everyone was exhausted. My room, it was myself and some staff, we were all going to bed. It was 1 a.m. exhausted, going to bed. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading on Twitter, and someone posted how they were staying out all night to get this dang hoodie, and they posted a picture of themselves in line. And so I kind of read that to whoever was still awake in the room. And another member of the staff was like, hey, we should go find that person and go just give them a jacket so they can go back to bed.
God.
And so,
that's awesome.
yeah. And everyone was so excited. And I was like, you're freaking kidding me. Like, are you an idiot? I'm going to bed. No, just kidding. I was like, but I told them that's a great idea. Like, let's do it. So we called up our other staff who were at the we had 3 hotels that everyone's in. And everyone was in bed. They were like, I can't die. I don't want to miss that. So everyone like got dressed.
No way.
And awesome. We all met, and we just basically went as a big hunt. It took us forever to find this person. And we kind of triangulated from the photo and just found where that person was. And they were under a blanket. And I just was like calling their name out in the sea, and they just sort of popped, she popped.
What?
She's like, what's going on? And then, so basically we gave it to her, and she was so happy. And that was probably like the best moment that we've, I've experienced here recently, of just like, to be able to, I've done time in Hall H line. I've slept
Yeah.
out at night. I've done my hours. And so, I know how hard that is. And so to be able to like gift someone as a reward for that was very like rewarding for our team.
Oh, that's great. And you must have really felt like you arrived last year as well. Because I mean, your name was everywhere. Everyone knew who you were, and people were wearing your jackets everywhere. It was a big deal for you.
Thank you.
Quite an
Well,
accomplishment.
it was kind of hard to wear those jackets in July in San Diego
That's
when
true.
it's 100 degrees outside, but man, they do look good.
They do look good. It gets cold. It gets cold up here in Oakland. We have fog.
Oh, it gets cold
so-
down here too, but not during Comic-Con. That's the only
Yeah.
downside. But it is a sharp looking jacket.
Sharp designs. So what made you, I know I was reading your backstory with Here Within, and knowing that you had created this, not just to make apparel for nerds and geeks, because that had happened before you came along, but you really wanted it to have some kind of distinction, some quality to it. What was your reasoning behind that?
Well, all of us and many of your listeners, we grew up nerds and geeks, and we, were, when we were younger, and me, I was like I kind of referred back earlier. I was seen like I was on the outside. I was bullied. I was picked on. I was, not really accepted and all that. And so we all sort of grow up with that, a little bit of that pain. We always that pain of, we know it's like to feel the rejection. We know what it feels like to not feel like that we're part of the in crowd. And but as we've grown up, while we've changed, our passions have not. Like we've kind of taken that into wherever we work, wherever we play, the people we date, all that sort of stuff. And I kind of felt like, wow, like while I've grown up, and then more importantly, the sort of who was kind of seen as nerds and geeks when we were younger are really like the culture shapers of today. They're the content creators. They're the people that are making, the entrepreneurs, making technology, blazing the trail. They're the ones that I feel like are really setting the pace for culture. And so like, while our status, I feel like, has sort of changed, I don't think the clothing has changed quite enough to keep up with that. And so it really bugged me that, because I did marketing for many years, that it really bugged me that like my 9-to-5 clothes didn't match what I wore on the nights and weekends. Like when I was going to Comic-Cons, when I was going into the comic shops, doing gaming nights with my friends or whatever, that like I had two different sort of personalities. And so one of our values for Here Within is the idea of integration, that like you should be integrated into one whole person, that you shouldn't have like your sort of day personality and then your nights and weekends. And so we wanted to create a line of clothing that really allowed for that really allowed you to sort of bring your fandom to and represent wherever you are, work, play, or at home. And so we kind of launched with like the idea of like blazers and peacoats and jackets. We have bomber jackets, and really like the hoodie you're wearing is really more recent. Like we really brought our hoodies along here with this past year, but for the most part, they've been a little bit more nicer, a little more sophisticated, button-down shirts, that sort of thing, sweaters.
Right.
And because I really wanted people to feel like that they could not just be excited about who they are, but proud of it. And that I feel like every one of us have a Here Within all of us that needs to come out. So we want to create a brand of clothing that reflected that. So to me, it's more than just like a pile of clothes and a pound and a half of fabric. But for me, it's like, oh, let's take like the pain of feeling like that we were on the outside, and let's bring it to the forefront and say, hey, I am proud of who I am, and I am representing what I love, and and I'm doing it in a way that makes me feel good about myself. So so that's kind of the reason why it's come around.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's awesome.
I wear this to work, and I get compliments at work too. So it's kind of nice to wear this kind of stuff at work.
Well, and it's cool. Like you said, your blazers and stuff like that. It's just that subtle stitching of having the Batman logo on your back. Just that subtleness that keeps it super classy and like you could, like you said, you could go into work and still
Yeah.
be proud of wearing something like that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I love what you've done.
And that's the number one compliment we get is people saying, "Oh, I could wear this to work." Like we get that all the time. And then the other comments we get is, "Honey, I want to buy this for you," because a lot of the spouses, girlfriends, partners want to dress up their man.
Sure.
And then also we get from the ladies, we get the comment of, "It has pockets." And so a lot of women's clothing don't have pockets, and so they are insides of our jackets as well as our dresses all have pockets. And for us dudes, we're kind of used to that, but for pretty much the entire existence of women's fashion they did not have pockets. And so I'm claiming that I discovered that women have like hands, and they have
Right.
they have
That they carry things,
phones,
right? Yeah.
they
Yeah.
carry
And
stuff.
style.
Right. Yes, and style, of course.
Yeah.
Very well done. So on that note, did you want to say something, Lauren, before I move on?
No.
Okay. So one thing I did see on, I think it was on Twitter, that you were actually donating face masks. Is that correct? Is that still something you're doing?
Yeah. So we, during the month of March, when everything was really sort of blown up, we really kind of wanted to shift our focus towards supplying the PPE, the personal protection equipment, to first responders. And so
Nice.
my factories overseas, because they were getting up and running, we had them shift from apparel manufacturing to supplying different PPE to us. And so it's primarily face masks, but it's also things like the plastic face shields, the caps, gloves, that kind of things. But we're mostly ordering face masks. That's kind of the most needed, the requested thing. And so
Right.
so we started with a fundraising shirt called the Stand Together shirts, and it's a stand together at a social distance, sort of supporting what's going on right now. And a portion of those proceeds were going towards the purchase of face masks. We were also taking donations, straight donations, and then we were also selling a chunk of our inventory off, and 100% of those proceeds were going to face masks as well. And so I did it on my social. I did like a kind of a general call for those people who have friends or family members that are in the medical community that know that they're in need, for them to contact us, and we'd love to send some donations. And so we were able to send face masks to, Minneapolis, Oregon, Colorado, several hospitals here in California locally. I wanted to make sure to support our local hospitals here. And yeah, so we're continuing to do that. And we're grateful that our factory overseas was able to shift gears, and that we were able to, play a small part in helping, first responders.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a great cause, and also not easy to do when you do your company itself isn't probably doing so well in this climate. Hey,
it certainly wasn't it's not a, no one's making money off this. It really is
right.
Like, we're just kind of taking it and making sure that we're covering our costs and setting it forward. But I just truly felt like that if anyone has the means at all to help their fellow man, especially first responders, then it's sort of our sacred duty to take that, and then everything else will play out eventually. So.
No, well done. I applaud you for
very
that.
Cool. Very cool.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Especially the Stand Together shirt too. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, listeners, it's a really great design, I think.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking
We
shirt
only have
too.
like a few left, and so we're not sure yet if we'll do another run, but we literally only have like maybe 4 or 5 shirts left. They're almost all gone. So.
I will say, the first time I saw it, I did kind of chuckle a little bit. The Stand Together at a social distance.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty clever. I like that.
Yeah.
It's tricky because I've seen some shirts out there that are, like in this moment where people are vulnerable, you have to use good taste, common sense, and we've had a few people that have accused us of trying to capitalize off of this pandemic.
Gotcha.
And then we've had others accuse us of like not producing like real legitimate masks, because there's been, unfortunately, the U.S. has been inundated with PPE that is not the standard and not FDA approved, and so the customs is really overwhelmed with having to limit the amount of inadequate protective equipment that's coming into the U.S. Sure. And so, a lot of people who are not a lot, but we've had some naysayers about, that we're frauds and all that sort of stuff, and
okay.
So I understand that's just part of
sure.
it, but it's a delicate line between appropriate and distasteful, and we want to be a little like recognize what is happening, but at the same time certainly not any disrespect for what the victims of this virus as well as the first responders. And so we're a learning curve for all of us. Like when we launched it, I'm like, I have no idea if like this is gonna people are gonna care about this, or they're gonna burn it down, or if they're gonna love it, who knows? And so but it seemed like it responded well, and we went through a couple of runs of it, and we may do it in the future. It just kind of depends on how things play out.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Wow.
No, that was great.
Yeah.
So have you ever, something I've been thinking about just because I really like your line of stuff, is you ever thought about doing like a shoe brand or doing like a shoe line?
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Shoes is definitely a tricky thing. If you've noticed, with many brands, they don't cross over from shoes to apparel. Because shoes is very difficult product it's very expensive to R&D it, as well as a single style also has so many different SKUs or we call it stock keeping units, and so there's like so many different sizes, right? And so it's a little bit of an inventory nightmare. And so unless you are a brand at the level like Nike or Adidas, something like that, who can sort of cover that scope, it's a difficult thing to do. Now, not to say that it's outside of our realm, and I'm certainly interested in that, but it might be a little early for us to sort of go that direction. But I love shoes. I would love to do it, and nothing would please me more. And we've had some opportunities, and we've done some initial testing that with some like somewhat the results were a little bit too like I don't know, maybe the quality wasn't quite there, it felt a little cheap. And so if we do it, I want to make sure that it really is done right. Good. And it's tough, but maybe someday. So
it's interesting because like I was at Macy's and they had Levi's shoes, and I'm like, when did Levi's start making shoes? And they were on clearance for $15. Like no one also knew that Levi's was making shoes, and so it is interesting for apparel to jump in.
Yeah.
Well,
typically you're a big clothing brand first, and then you jump into shoes. That's why if you see that, it's only the name brand, the recognizable name brands that are doing that. It's just hard. It's really hard to do that, to manage both those sides.
I guess it's not a shoe-in.
Oh,
especially
we're taking it one step at a time.
That's right.
Yeah. People like dress shoes. More and more you see people wearing like sneakers as like, fancy sneakers as dress shoes. They're tired of the like business shoes. Yeah. So to have a whole like pop culture hero identification with it.
Well, Kanye launched his line of slides during this the epidemic called Yeezys with a Y. And they're kind of like they're like slides. They are interesting looking, but knowing that like
look them up.
Yeah, look them up. They're definitely interesting looking. They kind of look like orthopedic like nurse shoes or something like that. Slide.
Classy.
Anyway, but he was creating something that people probably have a high demand for right now because they're not wearing shoes. They're wearing things like
that. That is bizarre looking.
Yeah.
As he finds it.
Oh, that is so bizarre looking. They almost look like Crocs, just
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
Croc sandals or something like that.
They look like Croc sandals that that were in the movie Aliens.
But I think they're selling for maybe like 50 or 60. They're not crazy expensive, but he's probably selling
Yeah.
a billion of them, and
Right.
and they're meeting a need because people aren't wearing necessarily a lot of shoes right now besides walking shoes, or they need stuff to wear around the house. And so it's gonna, anyway. But to your point, like, this whole epidemic is going to force us to have to think differently, like
Bathrobes.
Yeah, seriously, it's
yeah.
pajamas, bathrobes,
Sweatpants.
yeah, all that sort of stuff. And so it wasn't within our original vision and scope, but like,
Right.
I guess, like, high fashion, or at least like more, nicer apparel is just not going to be in demand for a while. So everyone has to innovate or they're going to die. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, and to jump back into the pop culture discussion, have you ever seen any of your products on like TV or movies or anything like that? And have they shown up like without you even knowing?
I mean, I see them in different media places. I see them on social medias. I don't recall if I've seen it. I mean, definitely on YouTube, different YouTube channels. I see it appear all the time here and there.
But not like the Big Bang Theory.
Probably, yeah. I'm not seeing it on that level of show. I think the most I've seen it at where I get most excited is both the DC, which is now on their DC streaming service, but before their DC dailies and DC online. They're like that whole DC Comics web show, as well as the Marvel web shows where they're interviewing talent and all that sort of stuff. Like, I've seen them on both those, which is always kind of fun to see.
I've seen those guys wear them.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's anytime you see it out in the wild, it's really, it's really great. I think the first time I saw a jacket in the wild, it was a couple years back when I was at a movie theater. Someone's wearing I can't remember what it was now. I can't remember what it was. Jeez. Maybe it was a Guardians jacket, but yes, but seeing something in the wild for the very first time, at a random place, away from a Comic-Con, because we see them at cons all the time, but just seeing it was like
in the wild, right? You should have walked up to that guy and said, "Hey, you're wearing my jacket."
Yeah, it was mind blowing. So yeah, give me my jacket.
Well, and that's like what goes through your head. Like, I mean, for me, I would be like, "Oh my God, I want to walk up to him and say, you're wearing my apparel."
Yes.
The funny thing is, I've had a handful of times people come up to me and say, "Hey, Here Within jacket, I like that." They don't know who I am; they just recognize the jacket.
Right.
So that's always fun for that to happen. So anytime there's any sort of interaction like that, I'm super humbled and super just thankful and grateful that to have that moment. So
cool,
yeah,
very cool. And so with a business like this, with an idea like this, how do you go from having this idea to then kind of turning it into a business and turning it into something profitable?
That's the key.
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, that's the $1 million question. I mean,
yes, we're taking notes right now.
I mean, I was fortunate for two things. That before I was doing this, I was doing, and you kind of referenced the Nerd Food guys. I was, my personal website called Crazy for Comic-Con, where I blogged about Comic-Cons and comic adventure and geek culture, and that's where I got to know the Nerd Food guys and others. After a few years of blogging there, and having a small following, when I first had my idea for Here Within, I announced it on that website and said, "Hey, and this is 2015. I'm taking this idea to Comic-Con, and please, if you see it, tell me what you think and help me get the word out, because I just want to see if this idea could actually work." So I was very fortunate to have a small following of people that could just help me sort of craft what it would become and then help launch it. Because when we launched it finally in 2016 at San Diego, we had there was enough people there to sort of help support it and get the word out for it. So that was a big thing is if you want to start a idea, a business, a company, or anything like that, you don't need 1 million people. You just need 1,000. You really just need a concentrated group of people who believe in what you believe in and are willing to support it in some way, whatever that looks like. And so, I think if it wasn't for the Comic-Con community and then the followers of my blog, there's no way we could have got this off the ground. But it just was, again, just a small group of dedicated people that just help it get it going. And then the other part of it is there's with apparel and anything that has to do with merchandise, you have to have deep technical knowledge of your product. So
yeah,
while my background is in design and marketing and communications, it's not so much in fashion. So, but I had a buddy of mine who helped me. Basically, I partnered with. He had 20 years in apparel industry, and so he just helped me dive into the deep end, held my hand through the whole process, everything from concepts to samples and the technical developments to the actual manufacturing, and then now you have to not only manufacture it one time, but you have to manufacture 1,000 times, and then and then all the funding for that and how that works, and then the actual distribution and how you sell it, not only in person but then online and all. So someone that just helped me to get to that point. So for anyone who's ever interested in starting their own business, I mean, fortunately, because of the internet, the whole world is a reach away. You can find somebody that has smarter and quicker and faster and knows more how to get something started to help you through that process. And so if I didn't have him and others, there's no way.
Yeah.
So I have no business being in this industry, be frank. And I mean, I wake up every morning going, if people really find out who I am, they're going to think I'm a fraud. They really are.
We should stop the interview.
Yeah. But that's the kind of crazy thoughts that entrepreneurs think. They're just like, I'm hustling, and I am just I'm doing everything I can to fake it till you make it, and I'm just hoping that people don't realize I'm a big phony. And I'm grateful that I do. All jokes aside, I do deeply believe in what I'm doing, and I'm glad that I'm so grateful that I get a chance to do it. I hope that I can do it again in front of other people. But
we do too.
Yeah, but but the fact that people, it resonates with them, they seem to love it, and they're constantly reaching out to us about it. I can never say enough thanks to the people who not only just helped me launch it years ago, but who continue to sustain it today. I can't say thank you enough. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, I know that with this pandemic and everything happening, it's kind of hard. I wanted to kind of wrap the interview up with, what do you feel is the future of Hero Within?
Man, gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, even whenever shows get back. I mean, if you think about it, like, on the most optimistic projection, maybe this summer, like, things will open back up and people will start traveling again. Who knows? I mean, our next show that's on the books is Fan Expo Dallas, which is in June.
Nice.
But June seems so early still, and then after that,
yeah, it does.
Yeah, we had San Diego, of course, canceled in July, but then Emerald City is in August. So imagine even when either the June or August, even if those shows open, like, people are still going to be paranoid, and they probably, they're not going to go. And even if they go, many of them have lost their jobs or have their savings have been dwindled away, and like, they're probably not going to be spending. And so even if things open up, I don't think the culture of sort of buying and spending is going to be the same. And so I'm worried that things may open back up, but it may not return back to any sort of resemblance of normalcy until maybe like a year, 18 months, 2 years from now, maybe.
Yeah.
So for Here Within, we have to figure out what to do next. I mean, there's been a lot of, we're participating in like a virtual Pop Expo, which is a virtual Comic-Con that's May 9th and the 10th. So it's in a couple weeks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I heard about that. May
So,
was talking about it.
Yeah. So, if you Google search virtual Pop Expo, I think it's virtualpopexpo.com. But, it's still yet to be seen if can virtual shows scratch the surface of anything near what the experience that a con has. So if we can't find a place to sell in front of people and to continually grow our audience, because our current fan base can only buy so much of our stuff, right? So if we can't get more people introduced to us, and at the same time, people just don't have the funds to buy clothes right now. So it's gonna be a long road, And but I'm an optimistic person, and I always feel like that, that the best is yet to come, and as a result of all this, that there's something on the other side that's going to be even more better, more beautiful than before. But realistically speaking, it'll be tough to get there. And so, like I said, we may have to try new products and try new things, and market ourselves in a new way and all that. But we're preparing to sort of like tighten the belts and just basically go back to drawing board of who we are to become. So.
Nice.
Well, where can people find you and your company online so they can hopefully buy some stuff from you?
Yeah, you can Google just Hero Within, and then everything will pop up. And our website is herewithinstore.com, and on social and Instagram and Facebook is Here Within, and MySpace. You go find some MySpace. Bring it back.
Really?
That's the key. Is to win until 2020 is bring back MySpace.
Yes.
That is going to change the game for us. To change the game for us. But yeah, you can find us all there.
I hate to jump back just a little bit. Do you keep up with Crazy for Comic-Con at all?
Yeah. Fortunately, I have a team that are writing on the side. I still do a little bit as well, but we're not doing as much of the original intent of Crazy for Comic-Con was helping the first-time Comic-Con attendee, and now honestly, I started in 2010, and so 10 years ago, and so there's now so much resources out there for attendees that there just isn't as much of a need for me. So now it's just more of our community and people who are connected to me, kind of thing. But by the way, I want to mention that we mentioned the Stand Together shirts. Mm-hmm. Because everyone's stuck at home, we're offering free shipping with the code Stand Together. So for anyone who wants to purchase with free shipping, then just use Stand Together, and that'll get them that.
Very cool. We could put that in our tweet whenever we tweet this out.
Yes, please do. That'd be awesome.
I mean, whatever we can do to help you is, absolutely. We want you to stay afloat as long as possible because we love your products.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm a geek nerd and comic book fan at heart, and I'll be going to cons and be at the comic book shops, God, Lord willing, for the rest of my life. And so, our company was birthed and launched and grew through the Comic-Con community. And so, I'm grateful for all the support that people like you and, the fan base have been able to provide. So thank you again so much.
Very cool, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Hey, and if you like what you're listening to, check us out over on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Secondary Heroes on all those channels for fun pop culture news, episode drops, secondary interactions with you, our guests. And if you haven't already, please rate and review our podcast over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all those. We're on all of them. And hey, do you have any questions for us? Don't be shy. Ask away. We would love to start answering your questions because you know what? All of this is free for you and priceless to us. Yeah. So thanks again, Tony, for being on.
Yeah. Just one kind of a positive note to end on. Do you have like a favorite thing that you've created?
Your favorite thing, huh?
Man, that's like asking my favorite child.
Yeah, it's like a favorite kid.
But let's be honest. I do have a favorite child, but just probably the one that I love the most is the Wonder Woman denim jacket. We have a men's version and a women's version, and I love denim jackets because they're so timeless and classic. But when we first launched that back in 2017. There was, people were excited about it, but there was also like some weirdness around it too. Like
Hmm.
dudes who thought that, oh, like why is there a Wonder Woman jacket for guys? Like that seems like, that seems kind of weird. And unfortunately, there were some like homophobic responses to it and all that.
Right.
I remember all this controversy.
Yeah.
I was keeping up with it because it was crazy to me to think that people are honestly that just so their blinders are on.
Yeah.
It's so dumb, but sorry.
It seems like it changed.
Yeah, so things have changed quite a bit, just in sort of, because when we launched our Captain Marvel jacket, there was none of that. So it's really neat to see how, like, in some tiny, minute way that we kind of helped push the needle of change along when it comes to what people think, how they represent their heroes. Is Wonder Woman a hero just for girls, or is she for everybody? And so it's really cool that our clothing can kind of be a part of the conversation in some way. So that's probably the one that I like really, when I think of, like, sticks out in my mind.
Good choice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, to everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, Prog out.
All right, thanks, bye.
What Michael Jordan is doing with his The Last Dance paycheck, that is your clickbait of the week.